Well, interest rates are rising and they're not going to go down anytime soon. And that means more and more South Africans are going to get themselves into a debt trap, into the bottomless pit of desperation, of despair and disgusting. I needed a disgusting look at the future. Let's face the truth, though. Paying off debt is no easy task. Otherwise, everybody would be debt-free and South Africans wouldn't be the world's biggest borrowers. That's according to the World Bank. This is The Moneymakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield, and tonight I'm joined by Discovery Financial Advisor Khomotso Masongwa and the 2015 Financial Planning Institute's Media Award winner. That means he appears in the media a lot. Gerald Mwandi-Ambira, to talk about how to pay off your short-term debt in a year or less. I mean, it looks so incredibly likely, Khomotso, that we are all going to find it just a little bit tougher this year. 2016 is going to be a tough year. More and more of us are going to find ourselves at a point where we can't pay all our bills every single month.
It's true that, Bruce, but it's important that we have to first and foremost face reality and be realistic with our financial situations. A lot of times individuals do not necessarily get out of that debt trap because they are just looking over it and trying to hope that it just disappears, of which doesn't happen. So you have to be realistic, put down the figures and start working on it.
Yeah, and I blame Ben Bernanke, I blame Janet Yellen, I blame Tito Mboweni, Jill Marcus, now Lesija Kganyago, because they kept interest rates so low for so long that we've kind of been lulled, Gerald, into this false sense of security that money is cheap, it's going to stay cheap in perpetuity, and actually debt doesn't matter.
I think an important point to consider is that debt is relative. It's relative to where you are in life, how old you are, how much you earn, but the bottom line is that it's something which weighs heavily on you. Now, for a middle-class family, 1 million rand home, 50 basis points debt interest rate hike, that's 500 rand on your bond.
Like that.
Just like that. And that's 500 rand you didn't have last month.
And that's on top of the 500 rand that's already costing you more in the last couple of interest rate increases already. So it's only 1,000 rand more than a year ago.
Already, I mean, this year they've said 100 basis points by June, possibly December to June. That means 1,000 rand, middle-class family have to find it from somewhere. And they're carrying all this debt. Another problem is that we're talking short-term debt destruction. We want to kill it, get rid of it in a year. Is that really possible? Because you're looking at a scenario where I've built this debt over the last 10 years. I've had 10 years of good life. Can I really kill it in a year? Is that possible? I think it is in some instances.
Okay, so you've had the good life and suddenly somebody, and it's got to be you yourself telling you that the good life doesn't need to be thrown out the window, but it needs to be put on hold. Now, there is you, there is your spouse, and there are possibly two mini-me's that need to be told no for a bit. That's kind of hard, Khomotso.
Very hard and painful, especially for the little ones. But facing reality, you have to get through it. It might be a bit of a time of sadness, depression, because having the high life, used to eating out for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and now all of a sudden you have to take lunch to work, for instance. It's things that you really have to look at doing. You have to look at stop buying food on credit, for instance, you know, because then the interest rate, the interest that you're paying, they doesn't really add up at the end of the day. You know, so it's lifestyle type of changes that you need to look at. And you really have to involve your family so that tomorrow when you say no to your 12-year-old that they cannot do a specific sport or they cannot buy a certain brand of shoes, then they kind of get to understand.
That it's got to be a short-term thing, because the longer you draw it out, Gerald, the longer you take this pain, the worse it's going to get, because interest is a vicious creature when it's going against you. It's wonderfully when it's compounding.
When it's compounding, it's the eighth wonder of the world.
In your favor,
yes,
it's wonderful, but when it's going against you, it goes against you 3 times faster.
I think, as Khomotso did allude to the fact, it's a time for sacrifice. It's a time for doing and making decisions which you might not be comfortable with. Getting out of debt is not a comfortable process. You don't do it comfortably, you budget every month, and hey, honey, we're getting out of debt in 18 months' time. It doesn't work like that.
Valentine's Day, and we're less in debt than we were last month.
It doesn't work like that. It's a heavy sacrifice, heavy pain. And for some families, it might mean pulling out children out of certain schools for a year or two, because private schools are calling 6,000-7,000 rand a month. If you can put them in a school for 2,000, that's 4,000 rand a month. You've got 50 grand at the end of the year. You can start eating into some of that debt. So it's a matter of saying, okay, we'll put you back in private school at high school. You know, let's downgrade. Unfortunately, people who are already in debt have already made some crucial bad financial decisions like balloon payments, so they can't even get rid of the car.
I would suggest they get rid of the BMW long before they get rid of the school fees, but that's just me.
That's not going to happen because they took a balloon payment, so the settlement value of the car is nowhere near what they owe. So with most people who are in debt, I found that don't even start at the car because they took residual or they're on a lease plan. So it's very difficult to extricate themselves out of that easy one. But often if you are not on a residual, that's the first thing that has to go, because that's a nice lump sum you can immediately put to the family finances. I also suggest going cold turkey sometimes, in terms of all families have that rich uncle. Sometimes if your family, make debt a family issue. Let's not be afraid to discuss this, because often you find people suffering in a little silo and they've got an extended family environment which can possibly help to get them out of this situation. So I would say humble yourself if necessary. Talk to rich Uncle X. Better to owe your uncle than owe 3 banks, because your uncle is not compounding or reverse compounding.
Have you met my uncle? You don't want to owe money to my uncle.
Well, let's keep it open. Let's have those kind of outside the box solutions.
But more and more people are going to get into trouble this year. It's not only because of rising interest rates, but the economy is staggering and stagnating. We could go into recession. Pravin Gordon says we won't, and I want to believe him. If we get a ratings downgrade, all bets are off and jobs will go. Even when people think they're in cushy jobs, cozy middle class environments, they're not overly indebted right now, but you can also become massively overly indebted when suddenly the job security is removed. Suddenly your 50,000 rand a month job is gone.
Yeah.
Suddenly the £1 million debt, which was perfectly manageable, can't be serviced.
That's where the importance of something like an emergency fund is needed there. Because then if you do not have that job anymore for about 3 months, 6 months, you can start looking for a job, but at least you've got some sort of savings that can be able to assist you in carrying through the monthly expenses. But another thing that's important to let people know is that it's possible to get out of a serious big debt liability. It's realistic. Important thing is you have to walk through the journey.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not like today you get a lump sum, of which some would try and find a quick fix. Now the problem with a quick fix is you haven't gone through the hardship of actually learning to have a good behavior in finances, you know, that you need to stick to your budget, which you do not look at only at the end of the month. Every day you have to make a conscious decision to take lunch to work, for instance. You know, to take a walk to the nearest store instead of using a car.
It's amazing how quickly those small adjustments cumulatively add up.
Yes, they do. They make a difference. I mean, today is Thursday, right? Let an individual that works just do a quick brief of Monday to Thursday. How much or what is it that they had for breakfast? A quick snack, a Coke that they had to quench the thirst versus a glass of water that they would get in the fridge at the office, you know. And that 10 rand in a week, it's 50 rand. But it's not only that can of Coke, it always goes to the packet of chips. You know, and by the time it's the end of the day, they get home, they've used up quite a bit of money.
Now, Gerald, let's take one step further. This is the easy stuff. This is, we're falling a bit behind. We better tighten our belts, and we better... Suddenly the debt collectors start phoning. The lawyers start phoning because the debt collectors gave up on you. You were 3 months behind, and they sold off your debt to J. Smith and Partners, who are based near Bloemfontein. There's no way that you can go there and beg and plead. You owe them, I don't know, 10,000 rand. There isn't 10,000 rand in the bank. Are there options?
There are indeed. I think one of the best options is to communicate, especially with the attorneys. As much as and as scary as they seem, they actually bought that debt for next to nothing. So often if you offer them a lump sum settlement, they obviously would take it. They don't want, they're not in the business of collecting debt. So usually settlements with attorneys over 2-3 months of up to 50% of the debt, you probably will get a good surprise in that. Often they might take it
into the issue here where there are firms of attorneys that buy books of debt, and there's the issue of prescribed debt. At some point the debt elapses and you no longer owe it. Yes, you've got a black mark against your name, but these guys, and some of them are shysters, will try to get that money from you. And the moment that you blink or acknowledge the existence of the debt, not only have you been blacklisted, but actually
you're acknowledging the debt.
You're acknowledging the debt which is prescribed.
Again.
And you get nailed.
Yes.
How do we protect ourselves in that scenario?
In terms of debt prescription, I mean, obviously as a certified financial planning professional, I cannot recommend you dodge. But it is important for you to be aware of debts which might be prescribed which are under your name, okay, so that you can manage that situation. And when you take a call from that kind of debt and look, I haven't heard from anybody for 4 years about this debt, you can seek financial professional advice. I would say when it comes to debt, have a certified or CFP professional helping you along the way. Try get as much help and as much knowledge as you can, because it is a tough environment. Many companies that close.
Are you guys really interested in my problems, though? I mean, you like me when I'm coming to you with a lump sum to invest, not with a lump sum problem.
I think we are. I think from an ethics perspective, we are supposed to hear you out. You are my client in the good and in the bad. So it's almost like a marriage. So I think that you can get good advice which can help you to get out of serious debt. I mean, I've had scenarios where we're talking houses in Balito, houses in Neisner, Richards Bay. Has to go, and these are people who, to the face of the world, are seriously wealthy. But sometimes those kind of asset disposals help them to make the first step towards debt rehabilitation. And I think we need to stop looking at our neighbors and trying to compete. I think that's the main problem with South Africa right now. It's a consumption market. Everybody is looking at everybody else. And it's okay to drive your 10-year car if it's well serviced, gets you from A to B, gets rid of the new one. And if you do have that car which is 10 years old and you really want to be seen in a flashy car, get a lease, because that's easy to get out of.
Or go to Uber, sit in the back. You got your own taxi driver. There we go. And you look like you got a chauffeur. You've moved up in the world.
Exactly.
Let's leave it there. One of my favorite Trevor Manuel quotes from the days when he was finance minister was, "We mustn't try to keep up with the Kumalos." It's the South African version of the Joneses. That was the Discovery Financial Advisor, Khomotso Masongwa, and Gerald Mwandiambira, Certified Financial Planner. Thank you for watching. There'll be more stories around money, whether they're scary like debt or whether they're about opportunity to make money, so that you don't ever get into tonight's scenario. Until next time, bye-bye.